So this is a pretty scary story. U.S. is sending more troops to the Middle East as violence rises between Israel and Hezbollah. Now, just as they frame the Gaza war, the Israel-Hamas war, it's really a war on Gaza more than a war on Hamas. Same thing here. This is a war on Lebanon, and civilian casualties are already at a just obscene and intolerable level, which we will get into here. The U.S. is sending a small number of additional troops to the Middle East in response to a sharp spike in violence between Israel and Hezbollah forces in Lebanon that has raised the risk of a greater regional war, the Pentagon said on Monday. Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder would provide no details on how many additional forces or what they would be tasked to do. The U.S. currently has about 40,000 troops in the region. It's an amazing number when you consider we pulled out of Afghanistan, right? The Iraq war is over. Still 40,000 there. On Monday, the aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman, 2 Navy destroyers, and a cruiser set sail from Norfolk, Virginia, headed to the 6th Fleet area in Europe on a regularly scheduled deployment. The ship's departure opens up the possibility that the U.S. could keep both the Truman and the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, which is in the Arabian Gulf, in the region in case more violence breaks out. Quote, in light of increased tension in the Middle East and out of an abundance of caution, we are sending a small number of additional U.S. military personnel forward to augment our forces that are already in the region, Ryder said. But for operational security reasons, I'm not going to comment or provide specifics. The new deployments come after significant strikes by Israeli forces against targets inside Lebanon that have killed hundreds, and as Israel is preparing to conduct further operations. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday warned Lebanese civilians in a videotaped message to evacuate their homes ahead of a widening air campaign. He spoke as Israeli warplanes continued to strike alleged Hezbollah targets in southern and eastern Lebanon. Here is that video.
Message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons. Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon. Please, get out of harm's way now. Once our operation is finished, you can come back safely to your homes.
So I actually got chills when I saw that video yesterday because, don't forget, I didn't see this as part of a prepared segment that just came across my Twitter scroll. And I watched it, and I literally got a chill because what does that sound like? It sounds exactly like what they said about Gaza. Hey, we're not at war with the Palestinian people. This is about targeting Hamas. Don't let them put your life in danger by hiding behind you. What happens after a message like that? Hey, we need you to evacuate. We'll let you know when it's safe to return to your homes. Parentheses, if your home is still there. They don't add that part. What do you know you're in for when you see a video message like that? Well, this is what you're in for. Israeli strikes kill at least 492 in Lebanon, including at least 38 children and 58 women. This is from antiwar.com, great indie website written by Dave DeCamp, this article. Israel dramatically escalated its military operations in Lebanon on Monday, launching strikes against residential areas across the south and east of the country, killing hundreds of people. According to Lebanon's health minister, at least 492 people were killed in the Israeli strikes, including 38 children and 58 women, and another 1,645 were wounded. Al-Mayadeen reported that it's estimated that Israeli warplanes launched 1,100 airstrikes. Israel also launched an airstrike in Beirut and said it targeted Ali Karaki, the head of Hezbollah's southern command. But Hezbollah said Karaki was fine and, God willing, is in full health and wellness and that he was transported to a safe area. Tens of thousands of residents of southern Lebanon fled the Israeli bombardment and headed north. The Israeli military threatened that it would expand strikes to eastern Lebanon's Bekaa Valley and told residents to leave. Later in the day, it began bombing the area. So some advance notice that they gave, not even 24 hours. They put a video message up in the morning, and by the afternoon, the bombs were already raining. That's how much they care whether the civilians can get to safety. To justify its bombing of civilian homes in Lebanon, the Israeli military claimed Hezbollah was storing large missiles and missile launchers inside houses. Israel offered no evidence for the claim, besides animated videos and overhead footage that purported to show airstrikes on homes in Lebanon, but it was unclear. So talk about deja vu, just like they had that AI rendering of the tunnels underneath Gaza City. They put out the same thing here as evidence.
Village in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah stores cruise missiles, rockets, launchers, and UAVs inside civilian homes, hidden behind the Lebanese population living in the village. We are monitoring these activities, locating the weapons, and destroying them with precise intelligence-based strikes. I want to show you an example of a strike carried out a few weeks ago. Here we are exposing Hezbollah's method of hiding a cruise missile inside a home. The terrorists create a designated opening for the missile launch.
Okay, notice, and then they go to the actual launch, which I won't show you. I don't know if we're allowed to show an actual strike on YouTube, but notice the rendering is of a home in the middle of the woods with no civilians around, right? Like the rendering is, oh, look at this compound surrounded by nothingness so that we don't accidentally kill 38 children and 58 women. You talk about Orwellian, where, computer-generated cartoons pass as actual, like, evidence. This would be like if I said, hey, toys can talk, and I showed you a scene from Toy Story to prove that toys can talk. Like, you created this digitally. That's not an AI rendering of the thing you say is there, is not evidence that the thing you say is there, but the same exact thing. We get a video warning from Netanyahu. We don't mean civilians harm. We only mean combatants harm, followed by by airstrikes that kill way too many non-combatants, followed by an AI rendering of evidence. Hey, this is why we had to do what we're doing. It's the same thing, only now in Lebanon. So not only has Joe Biden failed to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, he's failed to accomplish their other said objective, which is to prevent a broader and wider regional war. Because here we go again. On Sunday, Sheikh Naim Qassem, the deputy leader of Hezbollah, said the group had entered a new phase of fighting with Israel, but he also said Hezbollah would end its attacks on northern Israel if there were a ceasefire in Gaza. Instead of pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza, the U.S. is backing Israel's latest escalation in Lebanon and announced that it's deploying more troops to the region. U.S. military aid and political support have emboldened Israel to escalate in Lebanon and elsewhere in the region. That's obviously Dave's opinion, but that is based in too many facts to want to cite. So yes, obviously, a catastrophic failure in foreign policy, to put it kindly. That is to give way too many benefits of the doubt to Joe Biden. There was a piece, we did this on the Patreon show yesterday. There was a piece that came out. The Wall Street Journal has, an exclusive. I don't know how exclusive it has to be. This is pretty obvious to most people who have been paying attention, but, they have primary sources saying, there's no chance for a ceasefire before the end of Biden's term. And not only has he failed to secure that, but he has failed to contain the war to the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, which is horrible enough. Horrible enough. I don't even have words to describe what's going on, to be honest. At least not words I'm allowed to say here in East Berlin. But now you see this start all over again. A death toll already, 492, and that's more when you count the strikes that they had last week. The beeper strikes.
The pagers,
The pager shit. Yeah, I forget what they're. Yeah, pager. That's right. I was thinking beeper because it's
You're too young. You
technology.
don't remember those.
Yeah, it's antiquated technology. But yeah, the pager strikes. Right. Exactly. So yeah, we're starting up all over again in Lebanon now, and so obviously more carnage and expanded war. World War III now cooking very hot on this burner here.
Yeah, this has always been the plan. And clearly, if you want to understand and be able to predict what Israel is going to do in this circumstance, look at their origin story. They always wanted all of Palestine. And from the beginning, they took most of it. The portions they didn't take have always been a thorn in their side, and they've always seen it as their birthright. Right? It was as Ilan Pape said, most Israelis are secular, but they all believe God gave them Israel. From the river to the sea people are the Israelis, and now that they've gone this far, they're committing a genocide in broad daylight. Their Hasbara is failing. For the uninitiated, that's their propaganda to the outside world. Hey, man, let's just go for it. Let's just go for it. Otherwise, we're just going to have to rip the Band-Aid off later. We're going to have this going back and forth with this indigenous population that we pretend are the aggressors for decades more. Let's just wipe them all out now. Let's just wipe them all out now while the sword is unsheathed. People already hate us. This is how much horror can people have? They're already horrified with what we're doing in Gaza. Let them be horrified with what we're doing in Lebanon. Let's get the from the river to the sea done. And hey, we'll do what they do. I saw this in Australia. You go to a concert in Australia, they have some Aborigine before the concert, do a little ritual. Yeah, in 100 years, we'll let a Palestinian come, and all the liberals can talk about how bad they feel about what was done to the Palestinians. But we'll have it. We'll have all the land, and they can go do a little dance or something. That's what they want. And they see this as their opportunity, the best opportunity they've ever had to finish this.
Right, and this is when they're at their most dangerous, because they feel like they're not going to get the goodwill back. So if you're not going to get any goodwill back in the short term, now is the time. Now may be your only chance to accomplish your military objectives. And to see this start up again, to see Netanyahu post in that video the same exact rhetoric that he said in mid-October when they were getting ready to invade Gaza. We don't mean the civilians any harm. We have to eliminate these targets. Cut to what we have now: 492 people already. And again, and their only evidence that they are targeting combatants and not civilians, as Dave DeCamp points out in that article. And again, they just get the chills. You see the same exact thing.
Yeah,
that's what they did in Gaza. They showed an AI rendering of a tunnel system, and that was their evidence. That was their evidence. Now, we've since come to know a lot of those tunnels have been around since the 80s and are no longer active. That came out in the Washington Post reporting. The tunnels under Al-Shifa Hospital were not active tunnels. They were not active tunnels. So they don't feel any burden to provide actual evidence. They say whatever the hell we want. We back them up on it. We're going to reference a bombshell story in our next segment, and then we're going to do a much more thorough piece on this on Thursday because it's huge. But they just did that. It was just found that Israel was intentionally blocking humanitarian aid, right? But they get to say, no, these findings are inaccurate. We back them on that. Like, they can just claim whatever they want without consequence. And now you're seeing almost a year after 10/7, this starting again now in Lebanon. So not only is it not slowing down, it's expanding.
Right. They are seizing this opportunity. Yeah, the idea that this was going to be over, that was the wrong call. They're just going to expand this war.
Exactly. Yep.
Please clap.